Do it together. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Come in, come in. When I see that the audience number has settled, I will begin. Welcome to the event. Get excited. Awesome.
John good evening. He left.
Oh, wait. Good evening and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Oliver from Greenlight Bookstore, and we're thrilled to host tonight's event with John Dermot Woods and Matt L. launching their new book, Mortals, out now from Radix Media, a worker-owned publisher and print shop, and our neighbors here in Brooklyn. They will be talking with Kevin Nguyen, so you're in for an excellent time. Before we start, I just wanted to say a huge thanks to John, Matt, Kevin, and the team at Radix Media, our neighbors here in Brooklyn, for making this happen, and to all of you for showing up. We're grateful for your support and for the chance to make space for conversation and connection. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things. In our Zoom webinar tonight, you can see and hear the speakers, but they can't see or hear you. They can see that you're here though, and there are a couple of different ways you can interact with the authors and with each other throughout tonight's event, which we highly encourage. The first is the chat, which you can find by clicking on the icon that looks like one speech balloon. You're welcome to post your comments and thoughts in the chat. That's a great way to show your appreciation for the author and interact with fellow attendees. If you have a specific question you'd like to have answered by the author, please post that question in the Q&A module. You can find it by clicking on the icon that looks like two speech balloons. We'll be pulling questions only from the Q&A to be answered in the later part of the program. And importantly, tonight's featured book, Mortals, is available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore. You can shop in person from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at both our Fulton Street and Flatbush Avenue stores, where you can purchase John and Matt's book and many others on site. You can also order online at greenlightbookstore.com for a quick pickup at the store for shipping anywhere in the U.S. I'll drop the buy link in the chat. As a thanks for attending tonight, As a thanks for attending the virtual event, we are offering a 2% off the featured book. Enter code Greenlight Events 10 in the coupon discount section at checkout online for 10% off. John and Matt are stopping by our store to sign copies of the book, so you can get a signed book. Oh wait, is that not true?
I don't know that it's true.
No. I will. It'll be this weekend. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I don't live in New York City.
Not the right thing either. Oh boy.
Okay. It is true. It is true.
It's partially true. Mostly
partially true. Okay. Okay, well, there will be some signed copies in the store. So if you order a book, make sure to indicate that you want a signed copy in the comments, order comments at checkout when ordering online, or look for signed copies when you visit the store. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and ongoing existence of independent bookstores, buying tonight's featured book is a great way to show your support. Our interviewer tonight is Kevin Nguyen, who is an author of New Waves. He is also the features editor at The Verge and previously a senior editor at GQ. Kevin will be speaking with our featured authors, John Dermot Woods and Matt L. John Dermot Woods writes stories and draws comics in Brooklyn, New York. He is the author of several books, including The Baltimore Atrocities, Always Blue, and Activities. He enjoys playing tennis on New York City's cracked courts and surfing along New York City's temperamental and often frigid shoreline. He is a longtime professor of English and creative writing at SUNY, Nashua Community College. Matt L. is a cartoonist from Albany, New York. He earned his BFA from Parsons in Paris. He was later accepted into Juilliard's professional internship program for scenic painting. He currently works at Upstate Scenic, located in the Hudson Valley. Their new book, Mortals, is a deeply meditative graphic novel about aging and posterity. Set in Brooklyn, the story revolves around Francis, an aging actor fiercely tethered to his craft, an obsession that threatens to estrange him from his family. When an opportunity comes along to play the dying father of a teenage pop sensation chasing indie film cred, Francis must sacrifice his ego and heightened self-importance for one last shot at legacy. But the mortality of his on-screen character presents a stark reminder of his own, which seems to draw closer by the day. And in the end, what will Francis have to show for the life he has lived? John and Matt are going to start us off with a brief reading and presentation from the book, and then they'll be talking with Kevin and with all of you. Please take it away, John, Matt, and
Kevin. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, and we're really grateful for Greenlight to host this and to to sell our book too. So please, if any of you live in Brooklyn, stop by there and buy lots of books. Buy Kevin's book, buy our book. Yeah, and I want to thank Kevin too for doing this. This is fun, and all of you for logging on, because I know at this point in history it's not always the easiest thing to log on to Zoom. But we are excited to share with you the work that Matt and I have been doing, and we thought it might be useful to give a little context for the collaboration that Matt and I have been working on comics for a few years together now. And so we just want to show you a little bit of sample of what we've done, introduce the book to you, and then we're just going to have a conversation. Oliver, can you start that slide presentation? Thanks. So this is the cover of Immortals. Here we go. So Matt and I started a few years ago. Matt and I met each other over a decade ago at a place called the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction, Vermont, where we were doing a summer program. And we decided that we wanted to create work together. About 5 years after that, I was living in upstate New York. Matt, who's from upstate New York, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we should collaborate." And I had never really collaborated on comics, especially in the case where I didn't draw them. But Matt I trusted Matt. I knew how unbelievably talented he is, and more talented than I am drawing these things. So it was just an amazing idea. So we began working on this epic graphic novel called Harold and Harry, about a father and a son who you see here. We call it kind of the pitch was the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frank Wheeler meets Raymond Carver. But this is a book that we actually created 75 pages of. But we realized that we needed to find an ending point, but we can show you a little bit of it. Can we go to the next slide? So the book, there was supposed to be some fun to it, right? This is like he's running away, but this is the items in his backpack, but also there's a darkness to it. This is the man who's essentially raising him as grandfather. The next slide. And there was this fantasy element where he imagined after reading books that he could go live in the Met. And this is such a great excuse to kind of like let Matt's artistic skills fly. But what we also wanted to show was the counter to that fantasy. Can you go to the next slide? Which is a shopping mall. So in reality, this kid stuck in upstate New York, the furthest place he could escape to was not the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Manhattan, but to the Pottery Barn in Colony Mall outside of Albany. We lost it there. Yeah, this is good. So anyway, I was going to say, but to me, this is what always amazes me about Matt's art. I think here, even with something like this, it's so quotidian. This is where you really see his abilities fly. Like this picture of the Zamboni in a mall is one of my favorite things he's ever drawn. So then we can go to the next page. So basically, this is Harry taking off, and this is kind of like Matt and I. We decided we love this book, we love it a lot, but we need to find something that we can finish. We have the whole thing written and planned, but 75 pages and several years in, we said we need to try some other things just to keep ourselves busy. So the next page. Matt's from upstate New York. I'm from Long Island. We said, let's do our own take on Long Island. So we created a town called Secatog, New York, and anyone who spent time in Long Island will know that the South Shore of Long Island, every town has a train station just like this. And Matt went and began to actually create this place. The next slide. And we got really excited. We're going to do a color work about this town. but then this town also became this. I'm sorry, this book also became a beast because it was this color project, and we decided we need something else, so we took another sideline. So the next slide. So we created Mortals, which was supposed to be a brief graphic novel, not graphic novel, sorry, a brief short story. We'd knock it out quick, maximum 40 pages. And then, of course, it became over 100 pages and almost killed us. But
we finished. We finally finished something.
Yeah, yeah, and we're alive, and we finished it. And Radix, beautifully came in and made this thing into, I think, what is a beautiful reality. So we want to just share a few pages, the first few pages of this book with you, just so you can see what it's about, and then we can talk a little bit more. So I'll be playing the role of Francis, and Matt will be playing the role of Claudette. So we look at this opening here. I'm home. Hey, bud, how was your day? Good.
Good.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I'm going to find my mom. Hey, Claudette, what are you getting into? My senior seminar is demanding we do True West again. I mean, what is it about that play with these man-boy actors? Remember when you and I did that performance at the Fringe? True West, man and a woman. That was innovation. What I wouldn't do to get you back on stage. You think you'd want to come by our workshop next week? Claudette, what did I?
Francis, I don't even know how to say. This news, too horrible.
What is it?
We got a call from school about Courtney's friend, about Amos. Oh, Francis.
What happened?
He was sledding upstate. He went into the road and a car. That's all there is.
Now, who was this?
Amos. It was Amos.
And which one is he?
He's Amos. Amos.
I know. I just can't quite place. Is he the subway kid, the one who knows all the stations?
No, he's not the subway kid. He's your son's best friend. Was your son's best friend.
Really? I mean, that term.
Fucking useless. You truly are.
That's not.
You really have no clue.
This isn't the time for your bullshit.
Bullshit?
Yes, bullshit. Your self-involved, hateful bullshit.
Self-involved? You don't even know your son's friends.
I don't know. I don't. Who walks him to school? Who?
A boy died. You don't even.
You think I don't care? You think I don't?
Amos fucking died. Courtney.
Next page.
Mon cher, why don't you go play in your room? I'll come see you in a minute. Merde.
Yes, merde.
You have no idea what you do. It's time. Tomorrow we start. We get the divorce.
One more slide.
Another one. Yep. Great.
Okay.
Cool. That was great, guys.
Thank you.
It's funny, the jacket copy on Mortals, it's like, like this weighing on this existentialism. I feel like we miss like just how funny the book is. Like I think that first scene really encapsulates it. Um, Even though I don't think you guys are like the best actors I've ever seen, but
That's hurtful.
Yeah.
but yeah, let's just get situated really quick. Where are you guys zooming in from?
Oh,
I'm here in Chatham. This is where I live in upstate New York, and I am in my boss's office because I am a hermit that lives on a mountain and I don't have internet or a computer at home. So I had to come to work to hop online for this event.
Matt's home studio would be much more colorful and precise in how it looks. And I am in southern Costa Rica right now. I'm surfing this week, and I apologize. It got super loud because the sun's going down and there's howler monkeys out around me right now.
Oh, that's the noise.
Oh, what that sound is?
Yeah,
They
I'm really
sound more
sorry.
like Whistler monkeys from.
Well, there's howler monkeys, and then there's I don't know what. I mean, apparently it's the most biodiverse country in the world, so there's a lot going on. So I apologize if there's a lot of background noise. Hopefully it'll die down soon.
I mean, I think we can make an exception for howler monkeys. That's a new one. It's usually the subway, right? Like when you do these things. Like, fine.
Yeah.
Kind of before we get, I have a bunch of questions for you guys. Mortals is fantastic. It's funny. It's deep. It's moving. It's very moving. And it's impeccably illustrated. But I did want to start. Well, actually, I feel like this doesn't come through if you like. Maybe you can see it. There's like kind of like a foil thing going on the cover, like, and these very cool end papers. So this was printed by Radix, which actually, John, you introduced me to. Why did you guys? Well, how did you find them, and why did you want to work with them?
So they actually did like that Harold and Harry comic that we did. They printed copies for us for what we were gonna like bring to like SPX, Small Press Expo for comics. So we already had knew who they were, and they're really cool because they live 2 blocks away from John. And when we finally started the Mortals project, and it all kind of started with like where Harold and Harry stopped was just, we submitted it to publishers, and we didn't get a bite, and I just didn't know if I could keep on investing a lot of time into something I didn't know would have a outlet for. So when we started Mortals, John was the one that was like, hey, why don't we just try Radix again? They're right around the corner. It's Brooklyn comic, like let's Brooklyn-based publisher. Let's go see.
Yeah, I mean, comics are tough too, because even though, people think comics, I mean, this, Kevin, but people think comics are like the cool thing. They still, they're not necessarily that popular, except amongst young adults. And so publishers don't buy comics unless you finish them. But like the problem with comics are graphic novels take years, right? I think what is that Chris Ware quote that like the graphic novel, the thing that takes half a lifetime to complete in 10 minutes to read on your lunch break, like, and that's the tough thing. Like, but Radix, they put a lot of trust in us. I'd worked with them on that Always Blue book, and I trust them a lot, and I know they make beautiful things. So we're just lucky to work with them.
Yeah, and it's cool. And there are actually, for New York being like central to a lot of kinds of publishing, I'm not sure if there's like a lot of indie presses in Brooklyn that would publish like a comic like Mortals, right?
Yeah, because indie is different in New York City often, right? It's like not that indie, it's like, right? Like it's hard
we're
to exist.
independent, but we have a distribution deal with Penguin Random House. Yeah, we use the marketing, the publicity, but we're independent.
Yeah. Although, by the way, Radix does have distribution with Ingram now, so they can, you get it anywhere. But yes, yeah, but you're right, Kevin. That's the thing. It's like, it's hard to, like, that's what's so cool. Like, I used to live in like, Athens, Georgia, where it's like everyone's doing their own thing, making books and whatever. But in New York, it's like the cost of doing everything. Often the DIY stuff is not as present, but not that Radix, I mean, Radix in a way is DIY, and I'm not from our standpoint, but from their standpoint, they're a publisher and a printer, and that's pretty rare too. So like, and everyone over there, they're very particular. I was with Lance last week, and he was showing me how his new printing press works. I didn't understand anything he was saying, but he was very excited about it.
Yeah, and I know it has kind of like a DIY spirit, but like I really think like the production of this does not feel DIY in some ways too.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Right.
Cool. Well, we just kind of want to take off from so the what you guys read was like the very beginning of the book, and I think the positioning of it is so interesting because you know, Frances and Claudette, like their parents, and what we saw is that their son's best friend died in an accident, and we have like a lot of stories about grief, but like what made you want to do a story about like characters who are almost like grief adjacent?
Want to start that one, John?
Sure. I mean, it's funny you say the grief adjacent, because my instinct is always to write a story. It's like the old Emily Dickinson thing, right? Like the slant thing, always look to the side, always look to the margin. So it's like, for me, it's just like, it would be really hard for me to write a story about grief if I was like to write the story, even though Amos's father does become a character in this, you know, but really it's his role in the Claudette and Frances's relationship. But to me, like to write a story about, you know, to hit the Amos's family head on, that would be very difficult to do that without coming across as maudlin or somehow almost like sacrilegious in a way, or profane. So to me, it's like to really explore things. I'm always more interested in looking at the kind of the world around and how things are affected, you know, on the side.
Yeah,
I guess, I was gonna add in that like on my side though, it's like also we're just like you know, death is just like, I don't know, it's just like part of life. And I mean, you know, we've all experienced it. Like for me, I guess like a little nugget that was, you know, important that I was thinking about a lot was like, you know, I had a good friend that passed away in like high school, and he was like a really talented artist. And, you know, you think about, you know, where he would have gone, like, you know, and so I guess that's sort of, but you know, we don't have those answers. And so I think where like I like what John said about like, you know, you're kind of looking on the slant, makes a lot of sense. And it's, you know, it's easier to be less personal too when it's like, you know, where you said more adjacent than direct.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess in terms of the illustrations, like a lot of the book is actually like very interior. And I guess like, is that a fun, does that feel like it gives you space to sort of express things outside of the dialogue?
I mean, I try and put heart and soul into every drawing, you know, sometimes to my detriment, you know, that's like, because you're just trying to get these things to have life. You're trying to get ink on paper to give yourself and hopefully give a reader the reaction, emotion. And so it's like, so, you know, I can only hope that, you know, that's what is achieved. But yeah, no, it is a very interior book, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the reason I love working with Matt is because I think we both kind of think in that way, and that's not always. I think the mode that comics are usually a very exterior kind of storytelling, or at least that's the stereotype around it. And I think Matt and I both stories that are interior, that are internal, appeal to both of us. And I think that's why we work together so easily, actually.
And it might be like a totally subjective thing on my part, but like I feel like the artistic medium often conveys like part of that feeling. Like I feel like Harold and Harry was done in pencil because I wanted it to have that sort of softer children's booky kind of look. And then Sekatog felt like it had to be in color. Like it just, you know, it really needed to be seasonal and needed that. And this book felt like it needed to be black and white and brush, and like that's like where so I guess it's just like more of a intuitive thing. But I feel like that's what excites me about comics, is every comic is drawn in a certain way. Everyone has their own way they use a line, and that's kind of where the emotion comes from, is the line. Like you can't really get that in a prose novel because it's just words on a page, and different writers use words to emote what they can, but I feel like comics has the immediacy of the pictorial language that it creates.
Yeah.
I had.
No, I was going to say real quick, just the way we work, we've decided, which is tells you something about our struggle, but we tend to reinvent the style each time. So like you see those drawings, it could almost be different artists, and that's the way I write as well. Like but it's like it's a really steep learning curve.
It's funny you say that, Matt, because that was like one of my questions. Because like when you guys showed some of the earlier illustrations, like I can say call like it looked like it was colored pencil and like like very tight and specific. Whereas Mortals is obviously in black and white, but like it just has like a looser feel. And I guess you sort of said you like kind of intuited it, but like was there just like I'm just curious about that thought process. And then like does John get to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, John's a great collaborator artistically. I mean, most of the time, I feel like pretty much every time I send something to John, he's like, it's awesome, it's incredible, I love it. But I mean, I feel like a lot during our character building process, that's where it gets most collaborative, where like I send him a sketch, like, he has a written idea and I'll send him a sketch. And that's sort of where we like really hone and go back. That's like the biggest back and forth on the artistic process, and like some of the panels. But most of it's pretty free. But yeah, Mortals, it also is like, I couldn't, unlike Harold and Harry, I just labored over those pages for so long. Like I just wanted every page to be a masterpiece. And there's a point where it's like, you got to get it done. You got to get a book out. Like, so this whole process again, it was supposed to be a novella, it was supposed to be short, but like the goal was that to do something more expressive, more and I guess sort of the speed that I was drawing on this book gave me surprises where like I wouldn't have had any idea I could draw certain things in a certain way, because I was trying to draw it quicker and not just labor over one page for a week kind of thing. So it was about discovery.
It's also interesting too, because I feel, and let me know if this is deliberate or not, but I feel like the pace at which I read it was kind of, it was actually less like the speed of the dialogue and more like how detailed each panel was. Like, I actually think I spent the most time looking at, there's a couple panels of squirrels.
Yeah, squirrel face.
And I do want to talk about this later. There's like a part where John Voight shows up and his like face is so menacingly detailed. I just like lingered on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is that like something about like how much detail and like the pacing of the story, or?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I'd say like part of it is intuitive, but I mean, I think about everything. I mean, I think about when to have a background and when not to have a background. It's all about like leading your eye. And if I just want you to focus on the facial expression of a character, or just like if the expression is the most important thing, then there's no point in putting a lamp and a picture frame and noise, behind a character. Like so. And then when there's like moments where I want to, again, like Brooklyn itself, I try as much as possible to make that a character in the story. And so I have to pick out the moments when the location needs to speak, but also not distract. So yeah, I'm constantly thinking, and then there's just times where it's just like, I've done the same thing for like 20 panels. How do I make this interesting at this point too? Like our whole second chapter takes place in the botanical gardens, and it's one location. So it's like, okay, how do I, make this dinner party exciting and have variety? And I'm not gonna like, I can't draw glass windows for the whole time because it would also, that would be a distraction too. So yeah, it's finding the moment that you want to speak. Yeah. Oh, the sun's going down. It's getting darker down.
It goes down quick.
So I know you guys worked on this largely throughout the pandemic, right? I'm actually just kind of curious, like, what did the collaboration like actually look like? Like, did it look like this? Did it look like Zoom? Was it email?
No Zoom. Matt and I. So Matt, we email a ton. Matt and I write back email and Evernote. But we do this thing where I think it helps that we both draw comics. So I write, I don't do like classic scripts. I mean, in this one we let it fly a little bit. Like in Harold and Harry, I thumbnailed every single page out, like layouts. Matt interpret them as he would, but like I was like that. With this though, we used a process where we kind of refined it, where basically I kind of pitched a story, and then I like wrote out the story more prosaically, and then I kind of like thought about how the pages would work, and then and then I got down, like atomized it into like the movements I wanted, but I purposely did not dictate panels or layouts. So basically I was like, I want this to happen, this dialogue on the page, and this and that. And then Matt totally interpreted that. And then once we, signed a contract with Radix and had to get a book done, we had to move in a way we never have before. I think it was good for us, Matt, right?
Yeah, no, I think it was good. Get out, out of the comfort zone a little bit too. But we did do Zoom with the editorial team at Radix, so we would.
That's true. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so we had like meetings where we kind of like have kind of open discussion, brainstorming sessions, and then John would like re-edit the script. I would do thumbnails, and then we would submit to Radix, and then we either have like a follow-up Zoom, or we would just kind of like email stuff. So yeah,
that was actually cool. So Meher is our editor at Radix, and it's great working with her because she also understood comics, even though she hadn't really edited. Well, she'd worked on stuff herself, but one of the problems, like I'm a writer who often publishes comics in literary journals, and people will say, "Oh, can you do this like edit?" And it's basically like redraw these 3 pages, like that'll take, okay, I'll get back to you in 4 months. It's not changing a sentence. But Meher, it was great working with her because she understood that, and basically understood that we could give her thumbnails and things like that, where we could actually have editing conversations ahead of time. And all the folks at Radix and everyone got involved. Sarah was involved, and Lance and Nick, and they all read it and gave us feedback. It was great because they understood like how to work with it. And like, we talked about this before, but like we had some hip hop lyrics at one point that we were trying to figure out. And yeah, Sarah's right there. Oh, hi Teddy. It was really cool because basically they worked with us like that, just thought different lyrics would be more appropriate for this, and they began to even think about like the physics of the page, and it was really amazing to have literary editors who got all that stuff.
Most of our edits were more additional than subtraction, or like there wasn't like a lot of
Squirrels and John Boyd.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've really gone on a tangent here. We got to get back to the main subjects.
But they were later additions to the book.
That's true. Both of those were additions. Yeah.
That's funny. Was there a moment? I mean, you guys have said this a couple times now, where it was supposed to be like a smaller project, like in the 30-40 page range, and like, was there a moment where like, oh shit, it's like actually going to be over 100 pages, or like, did that slowly accumulate, or was that just like a moment and then Matt was like, I gotta draw a lot more now? Or
yeah, I got grumpy. Yeah. And there's a point where it's like, I know it's not gonna be short, and it's like our stories typically always get bigger than I expect them to be. But then it kind of grew even beyond the part that I thought it was gonna get, so yeah, there was definitely moments where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe how much more there is.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, Matt would dilate some of my pages into longer things he wanted to explore. So that was like a, handful of extra pages. But then all of a sudden we're like, no, we need more. We have this, it's based on this like Sophoclean 3-act structure. So originally it was like these 3 acts. And then we were like, whoa, but we need these interstitial things, like that thing we saw before with like Francis laying in bed and like the squirrels. And we had to create these like beats in between, and then the story just got bigger. So yeah, that was, so I think that was scary sometimes for Matt in particular.
But it's nice to see it as like, it's nice that it became like a real book. Like it's like, it filled out to like, to be a respectable graphic novel. I think.
Friday night was a pretty emotional. I don't know about you, Matt, but it was pretty emotional for me, mostly because to see Matt like finally hold the book, it was like, it's okay, Matt. It worked.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was really, really like, walking on clouds.
I usually like avoid this question, but I actually think it's like kind of interesting as because you guys are collaborators, but like the influences and inspiration question. So you guys met at like a cartooning program, it sounds like. Are there just sort of like works that you guys both felt inspired by for Mortals together? Are there anything like you guys both didn't like or?
Yeah, I feel like my inspirations are just kind of always coming like new. You know what I mean? Like there's like I'm always excited by like, you know, whatever new that's like I'm reading. I mean, we do have like classics, like John and I always talk about Calvin and Hobbes, and I talk about Tezuka. But like during COVID and during the book, I read a lot of Love and Rockets by Jaime Hernandez's stuff specifically. And that really sunk into Mortals. I feel like, especially in some of the later pages with like kind of the big blacks, like everything I was looking at Jaime, I was just like, oh my God, this guy is a genius. He's so incredible. And
although the tennis partner is a Gilbert Hernandez character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But I mean, I was always like a Gilbert fan, and I hadn't really read a lot of Jaime's works, and it wasn't until like COVID that it like was like, I need a lot of comics to read because you know there's just me in my home. So yeah, I really fell in with that. And Gabriel Bell's work was another cartoonist that I really fell in love with during Mortals.
Yeah, and I feel like those two were big. It's funny, Matt. We've talked about
those two are like
Bell.
already in your DNA. I feel like, you know.
Yeah, but I think I thought about them a lot writing this too, because there's like these beats and these strong black lines, and there's a simplicity to their work. I mean, you know, obviously Jaime Hernandez is, you know, I don't know. I find him unapproachable almost in certain ways, but like, but you know, yeah, definitely. I think narratively, because I love the fact that both of them, they're short story writers, you know, in a very literary classic way. It feels like reading a short story you'd read in an anthology, and I think that was real because this did begin as a short story. I think they were big for me, and yeah, I don't think we've ever talked about Jaime Hernandez in relation to this book, but I think he was big there, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see it because you have a lot of like interpersonal domestic stakes, and then the tone is kind of similar to like where people can be yelling one frame and then making jokes the next.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. For people in the audience, if you have questions, there's like a Q&A button somewhere in Zoom. So if you want to get your question out there, please enter it. But I have plenty more. So if you don't have any questions, I will just keep asking questions all night for the next 10 minutes.
We can't see John anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. At the equator, the sun
show
goes
the
down
progression. This event.
Yeah. I got
like
light on.
Beautiful purple behind you.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
Dramatic.
Yeah. And by the way, I just heard an animal on this tin roof next to me. I don't know what it is, but yeah. Anyway.
Howler monkey.
It's like a leopard.
I guess kind of related to the Hernandez Bros stuff.
A liger.
What drew you guys to like want to center the book on a character that is like, I think at certain points like kind of despicable?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess that's a question for you, John. But I sort of love that. Like, he's unlikable for so much of the book. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what you said for so much of the book. I guess one of my challenges was like, I don't know. I've never been good at creating those like lovable protagonists that people embrace. You know.
I guess that's more like. I mean, I guess what's interesting is there's more opportunity for growth in a character when they kind of start off being unlike, you know, if you like start with a character that's like, you know, just like perfect and like, you know, amazing and everything else, like, you know, you're already rooting for them. And I feel like part of the challenge of life is to like, you know, root for the people that maybe, you know, need more help than others in terms of like, I don't know. I guess there was a lot that I could see myself in Francis, even the parts that I didn't like. And I think that's what's important in fiction. Like, I think it's like important to sort of identify even with the like nastier bits of yourself, because they're all a part of it. So even though like Francis is semi unlikable. I'm semi unlikable. So yeah, I related to it. John's semi unlikable.
But I didn't. It
Sometimes
it gave me a challenge too, like, because I mean, I don't know if I thought about his likability that much consciously, but it gave me a challenge that this guy had to go through something, you know. So basically his problem was himself. So, and that's the thing, and that's what I was trying to establish in that first scene. It's just that his problem is himself, and throughout the book it's a guy fighting himself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a part of me that was just rooting for Francis because he's also like the funniest character. It's almost kind of like a Larry David thing. It's like, well, you know, like best friend gets thrown around a lot, you know.
Yeah, that probably was. I was watching a lot of Curb at that time, so that could have been. Yeah.
Well, actually, let's talk about let's go back to the least likable character, who is John Voight. I just thought like that moment was so funny because I think there's a lot of things in the book that are really culturally specific. You know, like there's like a big Totoro in like a room, like kids wearing a Green Lantern, like lots of specific things.
I can
They
notice
have a character that is like really actually pulled from life. I guess like why John Voight specifically, and like why that swerve.
I don't.
That was Matt's inspiration. Matt could answer that one.
I wish I didn't have to. It just, I don't know. Again, like, so like, I feel like.
Were you like reading something about him going on like a MAGA rant or something like that?
You went into Voight's MAGA relationship and like how he's like a kind of big Trump guy. Yeah, no, I mean, there was that like we had, yeah, there he is.
Just like probably it's one of the best illustrations in the book is just horrifying zombie wrinkly face.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess it's the ghost of Christmas yet to come. That's
Okay.
I mean the best, like it's sort of you know, I mean, Francis is an actor. He's like a sort of not really, he's on the verge of being has been if he ever was a been. Like, you know, he kind of and so, you know, we wanted to sort of have this, you know, turning point for him. And it was sort of like, well, what would be worse than meeting John Voight being, you know, homophobic? And yeah, like, and you know, it just felt right, I guess.
I feel like if I met John Voight, I'd just be like, I love your daughter's work.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That would make him really mad.
Yeah. Okay.
I learned a lot about John Voight when we did this, because I mean, I knew like him as an actor in his, you know, famous role in Friday Night Lights. And then we, you know, Matt told me about his recent turn. And then I looked up his whole, he doesn't get along well with his family, it turns out.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to go on.
And there was like, I guess there was a desire again to sort of contextualize the story in reality. And I really didn't want to do a story with face masks. You know, I wanted, like, it was weird. There was a weird transition of like, you know, the story started pre-COVID and then it went into COVID, and it was like, okay, I'm doing these characters who are not looking like what's outside of me right now, but you know, I want to draw what will be. But at the same time, I wanted to sort of reference, you know, what was happening now at the same time. So it felt like, you know, I'm pointing to that it's now, but you know, I wanted to show in the end what's the best of now.
I just think you made it more work for yourself because you put face masks on. You haven't drawn any mouths.
I know I could have got away with a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, last chance for questions. I have like a couple more extremely specific questions. Do private school fundraisers really get turned up like that?
Yeah, so that was inspired by like a preschool fundraiser I went to. I guess that was, and that was, I went to one at the Glass House, and I just remember thinking, these people are ridiculous. I remember 3 different like liquors sold there were brewed by people in attendance, and they're all made in Brooklyn. you know, and I'm just like, it's really the best stuff from Brooklyn, but okay. But yeah, and there was a lot of like sneakerheads with suits on. That was the other thing I remember. So yeah, that's Brooklyn for you.
Yeah, it's such a good detail because like it is such like a Brooklyn rich guy side project is to like it's like not open a bar, it's to like have a distillery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right. I'm making my own schnapps. Yeah.
We don't have enough whiskey in the world. Um,
Yeah.
okay, my last question. I love the tennis sequence. And I'm curious, John even has it in his like intro, his bio that he plays tennis. Matt, was John like, we need a tennis sequence?
I remember what I mean. It wasn't.
I just wrote it. I was like, these are the acts. In my head, I was like, that was going to be one of the acts. Like, I was like, I need
tennis
a
act.
tennis scene. And I've been bad about getting out recently because I've spent so much time surfing. But
Well, I remember you were
yeah,
very specific that like the tennis court had to have like grass sticking out of the cracks in the court and
Has to.
everything. Like, you know,
if
those
you play
details-
tennis in Brooklyn, you know that. Yeah, like that's in Fort Greene Park. What that one isn't, but in my head, that's where I played. But like, or South Oxford over there, and like it's such a scene. Someone could definitely write about that. Like the tennis rats of Brooklyn, such an interesting bunch of people. And I know people are far more into that culture than I am, but it's amazing. It's really cool, and it's like, and everyone's just playing on really crappy courts all the time. Like during the pandemic, actually, people would carry a red. Like I knew some people would carry a red string around them because they took down the nets because people thought you get COVID from playing tennis. So people would put up red strings on the empty courts, and they just kept playing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But there's also like
Yeah.
and like there's always the goal of like, again, how many, like in comics, it's like how many ways can you make a conversation interesting? You know, like and you can like, you know, you can do a talking head comic, but like it just gets kind of like dry after a while. So like it's really fun when you have something where it's like, oh, it's a conversation while they're playing tennis, and then you have like things to play off of, and you can play with those rhythms of like, you know, Francis getting hit in the head with a ball, and like, you know, you just you can just do a lot with more with the pacing when there's like an activity that's like working with the conversation.
Yeah, I like that Francis also had a one-handed backhand, very Federer. Um, cool. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. I asked a lot of questions that were very specific, so thank you for indulging me. And thanks for letting me be a part of this, guys. This is incredible. Congratulations. Oliver, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, that
Thanks,
was
Kevin.
awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I can't wait to look when I'm at the store. Thank you guys all so much for coming. I'm going to drop the buy link in the chat just one more time before we go. Thanks so much for that fantastic reading and discussion, and thanks to all of you for joining us. Don't forget to buy your copy of Mortals in store online at greenlightbookstore.com. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great night.
Yep. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you,
Well,
Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.